Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Crunch Time Nightly here on ASTV Productions. I'm your host, Joe Hamilton, along with Scott Tobin. Scott, how are you, man?
I'm good, Joe. How are you?
Pretty good. First day of March Madness, and it really hasn't disappointed at this point. I just got done watching that Drake and Wichita State game. Wow. All I have to say is wow.
Yeah. We've got the first four playing games tonight, and it started off good. You know, that first game, South Texas came back from a 10-point deficit to beat Mount St. Mary's 60-52, and they come back and play a great game and do that, and their reward for that is they get to play number one Michigan on Saturday, number one seed.
Ouch. That's all I have to say about that. And Drake did the same thing. I think they were down 10 points at halftime and came back and won that game. And I thought the game was going to go into overtime or be beaten at the buzzer because Wichita State heaved up what looked like a good shot at the end, Scott. It wasn't meant to be, but it was a hell of a game.
Yeah, Drake beats Wichita State 53-52. They get to play number 6 seed USC Saturday at 4:30. Yeah, it wasn't a bad shot. The Wichita State point guard, though, he should have taken another couple of steps because you didn't need a three there. You know, you're only down by one. And if you go back and watch the replay, the guy that was guarding him was on his heels. He was backing up, and he had space, so he didn't have to fire that three. He could have gone ahead and dribbled and kind of tried to penetrate and see if he got a better shot. I mean, he got a good look at the three, but he could have taken a higher percentage shot there, only being down by one.
Yeah, he could have. I guess he thought he had to. It happens in sports all the time, no matter what sport it is. You feel like you have to rush, you're against the clock or against time, and he really didn't need to. But man, how you're down 10 points at halftime, and you come back, and Drake was hitting the three ball late. I feel like those 3-pointers that went in were huge for Drake. Before this game started, Scott, were you of the, impression that Wichita State was going to run away with this, or knowing this is an old Missouri Valley Conference rivalry, that this was going to be a pretty good game?
Yeah, no, I knew it was going to be a pretty good game. Drake's got a good ball club, so I expected it to be close, and it played out that way for sure.
It really did. I'm excited about what comes next. I mean, we have the UCLA Michigan State game, and you have the Norfolk State Appalachian State game, and that game's going on right now. As of right now, that game's at 36-20 in the second half. I could be late on that. I'm only looking off Google right now, but
it's 41-25 right now.
Thank you, Scott, because Lord knows they could update these things, but they don't. First four, Scott, were there all of these games have a chance to be good ones? You said there might be a couple in here, but all of these games have to be good or have a chance to be good ones.
Yeah, they've been good so far. This Appalachian State game, Appalachian State in the first half was 0 of 18 from three-point range. That's the most attempted three-pointers in a half without a make in any college basketball game, Division I, all year long. So, they really got into a bind because they couldn't hit shots. They've cut it. It's back down to 16 now, but still, they're gonna have a tough time coming back. We're about 5 minutes into the third quarter now, so they still could, but they've got to get their three-point shot going.
Are threes that important, Scott? We always talk about the foul shots being important. Are threes important too?
Well, it depends on your team. If you live and die, if you're a three-point shooting team, then yeah, absolutely. Some teams are more a shooting team. It just depends on the makeup of your team. Some teams live and die with the shooters. They have more three-point shooters. Other teams are built more interior scoring. It just depends on the makeup of your team. But for App State, yeah, it's important because that's kind of what they've lived and died with all year.
Yeah, who does the winner play in this game? Appalachian State and Norfolk State. I kind of forgot about that.
The winner of this game doesn't really get a reward either. The winner of this gets to go play the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, Gonzaga, on Saturday.
So basically, Scott, and I don't mean to be negative, if we have any Appalachian State fans or Norfolk State fans, not trying to be negative here, but isn't it a invitation to get your butt kicked, basically? I mean, I hate to sound that way, but when you have that steep of a matchup, you basically know what's going to happen.
Most of the time, but you got to remember, 2 years ago, we did have a 16-1. Virginia fell in the first round when they were the overall number one. So it has happened once in tournament history that a number one falls to a 16. So anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Do you have an update at all on that UCLA-Michigan State game?
Hasn't started yet.
It hadn't started yet. I thought it was like at 8:57 Central Time, so I thought it would had to started by now, but I could be wrong.
Unless it just started in the last minute, because last time I checked, they were just getting ready for tip-off. So I'll check it here in just a few minutes. But as of about 3 minutes ago, they still hadn't started.
Okay, so let's kind of go ahead and look toward tomorrow too, because you got a lot of matchups here, including Drexel and Illinois. You have Virginia Tech and Florida, Utah State and Texas Tech. I mean, you're going to have basically wall-to-wall basketball. I'll read some of the other ones here. You got Oral Roberts and Ohio State, Hartford and Baylor, Georgia Tech, Loyola, Chicago, Oregon, Tennessee, and I could just keep reading from here. Besides the Illinois Drexel game I'm paying attention to, the one game I'm really wanting to pay attention to is the game at 6:10 p.m. Central Time between Wisconsin and North Carolina. How good of a game do you think this will be? Do you think this will be I think this will be a buzzer beater type game.
I think it should be a pretty good game. I have North Carolina actually getting into my Elite Eight. So yeah, I think it'll be a good game. But I have North Carolina coming out of there.
What is North Carolina's strengths in your mind?
They're a good young team led by one of their big leaders is, of course, the kid from St. Louis, Caleb Love, freshman from St. Louis. So, they're a good team. They've got to score, play good defense. But, they started off rough this year. They've kind of come around as the season has gone on and gotten better and better. So, yeah, I have them making a little bit of a run in this tournament.
You got Liberty in Oklahoma. Wow, wait, what the heck am I seeing here? Because Oklahoma's playing Mizzou. That's kind of odd here. But anyway.
Oklahoma's not playing twice.
Yeah, I don't know where this is coming from. But the other matchups are right here. Cleveland State and Houston, North Texas and Purdue, Syracuse and San Diego State, Rutgers and Clemson. That's an interesting game, Scott. How do you see that game going?
Yeah, I've got Clemson winning that. Rutgers is a good team, though. Rutgers gave Illinois a fight in the Big Ten tournament. They're a tough team. Anybody that comes out of that Big Ten is going to be a tough challenge. But I do have Clemson winning that.
Morehead State and West Virginia, and then you have Winthrop at Villanova. Do we know anything about that Winthrop team?
That's another one of those teams that's usually a 15 or usually a high seed. But they usually play tough, and every once in a while they'll win a first-round game. The games you want to keep an eye on, you see the most upsets usually in the first 2 days of the tournament. More often than not, it's that 11-6 and the 12-5 games are usually the two seeds that are usually the two games that we see the most upsets more often than not. And then, of course, the 8-9 games, there's a lot of upsets there too usually. But usually watch out for those 11 and 12 seeds. More often than not, a couple of them slide deep into the tournament.
And Theo chimes in about UNC. Offensive rebounding is second. Their offensive rebounding is second in the NCAA. That's what UNC should be doing. That's their bread and butter right there.
Rebounding is the key, always. For every team.
Yep. If you don't rebound well, you're not going to win a lot of games. So that Illinois Drexel game, is this a trap game to you, Scott? I mean, yes, it's not 16 and an overall one, but is there a chance if Illinois takes them lightly that this could be a real trap game?
I mean, there's always a chance. It shouldn't be. Illinois should win that game rather easily. But you never know. Like we've said, it's March. There's a reason they call this March Madness. You just never know what's going to happen. So, no games really shock you this weekend because we've seen it happen up and down the brackets for years and years and years. But, if I was going to bet, I would say that Illinois was going to win that game pretty easily.
Yeah, you would hope so. That game tips off at 12:15 tomorrow afternoon. I'm sure you'll be keeping an eye on that, Scott. I know you're a busy man, but I know you'll keep an eye on that.
I will. And just a real quick heads up, for anybody that hasn't filled out a bracket or gotten into a bracket challenge, you've still got about a little less than 14 hours to fill out a bracket and get into our Crunch Time Bracket Challenge. You can go to our Crunchbook page and click the link and sign up and battle me and Wags and Joe and everybody else that's in our bracket challenge. But you've got just a little less than 14 hours now, so go do it.
I hate to stop you there, Scott. Did you say Crunchbook?
Did I say what?
Instead of Facebook, did you say Crunchbook?
I don't think so, but it's possible. It's possible. It's been a long week, man. Anything is possible.
Hey, you know what? I'm not complaining. I just like a little bit of a laugh. We deserve that from time to time. Well, that's it for the NCAA. At least right now, there'll be a lot more talk as this tournament goes on. Actually, first of all, Scott, let's go to the NIT. Let's stay in the NCAA. My bad. You have SLU as the overall number 1 seed in that tournament. They kick off tomorrow. Talk about that.
Yeah, they've got a big game. Mississippi State, which we've seen multiple times in the SEC this year. So that'll be a tough challenge. But if SLU's healthy and everybody's feeling good, they've got a real shot of winning that NIT tournament. And it's still just a shame that COVID screwed them up and they're not playing in the big dance. But it would be great for those kids, those seniors, and everybody in that program if, despite all the adversity they went through, if they could go to the NIT and somehow pull that thing out and win that tournament, that would still be a great accomplishment.
The NIT is somehow, melted down because you have the NCAA men's basketball tournament. But it's a very good tournament, man. It's a lot of good teams in this tournament that just missed out. Talk about some of the matchups, Scott, that you might pay attention to besides SLU.
To be completely honest with you, I have not had a chance to really sit down and look at the full bracket for the NIT yet. I've been focused on getting everything ready for the NCAA tournament and everything else that's going on. So I will do that. I'll do that and be ready to talk about it late tomorrow or something before the tournament starts. But I honestly have not sat down and really looked at an NIT bracket to this point, Joe.
Yeah, well, I think SLU has a great shot. Mississippi State's going to be a tough first game, but hey, if you're a good team, Scott, you got to beat good teams in order to gain that respect and in turn win a championship. Am I wrong on that?
No, you do, and there are going to be quite a few really good teams in this tournament, of course. So, like I said, though, if SLU's healthy and everybody's in good shape, then they should be able to make quite a run.
Yeah. So, Scott, in the NFL, this is just getting uglier and uglier by the day. And I'm talking about the Deshaun Watson situation because now a third lawsuit has been filed against him. And the accuser list has grown to 6 women. Scott, talk about this real quick because, we were talking about this yesterday and you said you don't think it was going to be that huge of a deal. Well, this might be a big deal now, and I don't think he's leaving Texas now.
I didn't say it wasn't a huge deal. What I said was, we just have to wait and see because we don't know. Right. We don't know what's true and what's not at this point. So we have to kind of wait to pass judgment. And the same thing with this, because the lawyer came out and said, that there's three women now filing lawsuits. There could be as many as 6 women, but again, they're not taking them to criminal court. They're filing, it's a financial court thing. They're trying to get money. So sometimes that doesn't look good. I'm not trying to downplay the allegations because they're very serious if this in fact happened. But, sometimes when you have a big time athlete and instead of trying to take them to court, they take them to civil court and file lawsuits. Then you sometimes in the back of your mind, you ask the question, is this just somebody after money? Again, no idea, not trying to pass judgment either way, say he's guilty, not guilty. We just need to give this time to play out and see exactly what happens. Deshaun came out again and said, that he is absolutely denying any wrongdoing here, and that he's going to clear his name, that these are all false allegations. So we just have to wait and see. We'll have to see if there really are 6, and how far this goes, whether it's all civil litigation, whether there's anything criminal at all, which at this point it doesn't sound like there is. So, I'm going to wait to pass judgment, and see what happens when more evidence comes out. But I'm going to put it to you like this, Joe. You said you didn't think he was going to leave. Think of all the stuff that Antonio Brown went through in the last couple of years. He's still playing. He still won a Super Bowl. There's still teams after his services. This isn't going to hurt whether Deshaun goes anywhere or not, or keep any team from wanting Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. It's a dicey situation. We shall see how it turns out going forward. The Patriots, this is interesting. You know how you said the guys who opted out last year, the Patriots will be getting a lot of these guys back. Well, Patriots safety Patrick Chung, who opted out last season, announces his retirement. Chung spent all but 1 year in his 11-year career with the Patriots. Are you shocked by this? Because I am kind of.
I am a little bit, although, playing safety in the NFL for 11 years, his body's taken a lot of wear and tear. He's won a couple of Super Bowls. He's made a lot of money. And for Patrick Chung, after taking a year off, he's thought about it and decided that he would rather spend the time with his family and move on to another venture. So I understand it. It's not like he's 4 years in the league and in the prime of his career. He's kind of at the back end, and this is a decision that he's decided to make. So best of luck to him in his future endeavors, basically.
Now, what do the Patriots do to replace that? Because that's a big hole.
Very talented safety. Again, after 11 years, probably has lost a little bit of a step.
Yeah, right.
But, they can still go find somebody in the draft, or potentially there's still somebody out there in free agency that they may like, that they may go. But you can always find good safeties in the draft, in later rounds in the draft.
All right, Scott, just speaking on free agency, who are some of the guys that they could target?
There's a few safeties out there. Again, knowing Bill Belichick and knowing the money that the Patriots have spent and knowing how he likes to build his defense through the draft, I would almost be willing to bet that that's something that they do through the draft. I would look for the Patriots to probably take a safety. I want to say Chung was the 2nd or 3rd round pick. Somewhere in that range, 3rd, 4th round, there's always good safeties there that you'll be able to find. And so I think that's how they replace Patrick Chung, because Belichick loves to build that defense through the draft.
Yeah, and that defense lost a little bit, but yeah, I think they're going to gain it back. And I think Belichick, he's a genius when it comes to building a defense, or at least he has been. So it shall be interesting how this ends up, but I think the Patriots will get it right. So in other news, the Broncos and Philip Lindsay have mutually agreed to part ways. Philip Lindsay is a good running back, and my first thought is, where does he end up? There are going to be a lot of teams that are in on him.
Yeah, whoever decides that they want to go get a veteran running back, I don't know what the market is for him right off the top of my head, but there'll be 3 or 4 teams that are interested. The best way most teams anymore run a 2-back system where they don't have one back that's just the workhorse. They work as kind of a group and have 2 guys and sometimes 3 backs. So there'll be some teams interested. Right off the top of my head, I'm not sure who the top teams would be in his market, honestly.
Yeah, it will be a coup for his services. I think. What do you think he's worth at this stage, money wise?
Again,
you don't know.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I would be guessing at this point to say what he's
just take
get.
a guess. I mean, that's what we do here. Take an educated guess. What do you think?
I don't see anybody giving him more than a couple of years. Maybe he gets a 1 or 2 year deal, $10 or $12 million with $4 or $5 million guaranteed, something like that. I mean, he's not gonna break the bank. He's not that caliber of running back. Plus, teams don't really pay running backs top dollar anymore.
Yeah, teams don't. And I feel like running back is a premium position that is well underpaid, but that's just me. Outside
Well,
of Ezekiel Elliott, I know you were going to say that, but outside of Zeke and a couple other guys, they just seem so underpaid.
well, here's the thing about running backs. Running backs used to make a lot of money, but what people have found out is that running backs break down after 4 or 5 years. You get a lot of wear and tear on a running back, and their lifespan isn't real long. And so teams aren't willing to go out and spend that big money on a long-term contract for a running back where they might not get the value for their buck. Zeke got a big deal. I mean, look what happened to Todd Gurley. The Rams gave Gurley that big contract, and then his legs started to wear out. I mean, he had that injury in Georgia that we all know about, the ACL, and then the Rams gave him that big deal, and he wasn't able to carry that workload anymore after being such a workhorse for 3 or 4 years. And they ended up trading him, and he ended up having to file a lawsuit against them because they didn't want to pay him the money they still owed him. And we see that with a lot of running backs. Teams will sign them, and then they don't see anywhere close to the end of that deal because they get cut and they get the guaranteed money, but they don't see the long-term deals that they think they signed in the first place.
Do you think Zeke sees his long-term deal out?
I do not. Go
ahead.
I have questions about Zeke after what we saw last year. As much as he's run the ball, and he's a big, physical, powerful running back that's taken a lot of hits, going all the way back to his days at Burroughs in high school here in St. Louis, to Ohio State, to the couple of years, his few years in Dallas. He's been a workhorse. He's been a running back, but he's a guy that looks for contact, that runs over people, runs through people, and your body can only take that for so long. So, we saw Zeke's numbers really, really go down last year. I hope that he bounces back. I hope he has a good year, but I have questions as to whether we'll ever see Zeke get to the levels of a year or two ago.
I have my doubts, but at the same time, if Dak Prescott's healthy, Zeke with Prescott is a lot better than Zeke without Prescott. So I think he'll have a bounce back year.
Well, here's my question to that. That's true in one sense, but you would have thought last year when they didn't have Dak Prescott that offense would have run through Ezekiel Elliott, that the Cowboys would have given him 25 or 30 carries, and they really would have counted on him. And they didn't. There were a lot of games last year where he was getting 10, 11, 12 carries, and they went away from him, even when they had no passing game. And they used some of their second and third string running backs, and he just wasn't a big factor. So the fact that they didn't really run that offense through him last year when they really needed to makes me wonder what Dallas thinks of Zeke Elliott at this point.
What Jerry Jones thinks of Zeke Elliott at this point. I mean, Jerry Jones, whether if you believe it or not, I think he runs everything with the Cowboys, or play call and everything else. So I don't think he believes in him either. If the top dog doesn't believe in you, no one else is going to either.
I'm not saying that I don't know. I just don't know. There's just a lot of questions there after the way that everything went down last year as to what Jerry thinks and believes. And he definitely runs that organization. There's a reason why he's the general manager.
Yeah, so it's going to be a hairy situation in Dallas too. I mean, this is not over with Dallas. I'd like to think they could bounce back, but Scott, you being a Dallas fan, I kind of share your skepticism because Dallas, it's heartbreak after heartbreak every year. And it's sad because how do you have an offense like they do and look as bad as you do at times?
Well, it goes back to like we've talked about last night and all season long, they have no defense. When you don't have a solid defense, it doesn't matter. Plus, their offensive line was really banged up last year, and their offensive line is getting older. So it doesn't matter. I mean, you can have all the skill players you want, but if you don't have a solid offensive line that's healthy and you don't have a defense that can stop anybody, then it really doesn't matter. You have to have good pieces on all aspects. You can't just win. There's three parts to a football team. There's offense, there's defense, and there's special teams. You can't just have one really good part and think you're going to win. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. But my argument to that is, what about the Kansas City Chiefs? Their defense, especially when they won the Super Bowl, wasn't that good.
They got better as the year went on. They were a middle of the pack defense, and I think by the time the season was over, they were like 12th or 13th in the league. So they weren't horrible. Their offense definitely led the way, but that defense could make plays and stop people when they had to.
All right. I have to agree with that, but it's an argument, that's for sure. So when we come back, we will be talking some baseball, and the St. Louis Cardinals played tonight. We'll talk to you about that right after this on Crunch Time.
Theo here on ASTV. Check out my show Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. on the ice. Me and my guests break down all of the hottest and latest topics surrounding the world of hockey.
Welcome back to Crunch Time on ASTV Productions. Joe alongside Scott. The Cardinals won tonight. They beat the Miami Marlins for probably 10th game against each other. I'm just kidding, but I noticed the Cardinals play the Marlins a lot in spring training. But the thing is, they beat them 7-5. They were down in this game. Nolan Gorman hit an absolute bomb in the gap that scored 3 runs and put the Cardinals ahead 7-5. Now, Nolan Gorman, you say we probably won't see him this year. I beg to differ. I think we see him in September. I really do. You know why? He has that pedigree. He has that, you know what? I'll play anywhere on the diamond you ask me to play. I'll play anywhere. So guys like that are a premium nowadays, especially young guys like that. So I could see him up here in September, Scott. Maybe even August if the Cardinals are desperate.
See, let's hope not. And I'm as high on Nolan Gorman as anybody, but he's one of your top prospects. Here's the thing you have to remember. He's only 20 years old. He's 20. He hasn't played in Double-A yet. You know, let's not rush Nolan Gorman and say, okay, he looks really good in the spring, and he does. He looks like he's ready to play in the major leagues. But let's slow down. Let's give him time to make sure that he is ready. Let's not rush him up here in September and then have him struggle like Dylan Carlson did the first time he came up here, and then the season ends and you go into the offseason with a bad taste in your mouth, or he's questioning himself because he didn't have enough time to work himself out of it and show good things at the major league level. So let's just pump the brakes a little bit on Nolan Gorman. I mean, I definitely think he's a future star, but I just don't want to rush him too much. You know, I don't want to, you know, and that's going to be the thing. You don't want to be like, oh man, we got to get him up here. We got to see his bat. We want him up here. We want him up here. We need him up here. Hopefully, Tommy Edman plays really well at second base, and you get enough offense out of your outfield that you can leave Nolan Gorman in the minors, let him have a full season in the minor leagues, and he comes up spring training next year, has a good spring, and makes the ball club. You know, I wouldn't be shocked to see him in September, but I hope we see him in September as kind of a bonus and we just get a look at him and not because the offense is struggling and we need Nolan Gorman and we're counting on him to be a big part of this club.
I agree with you, Scott, but I mean, this guy looks polished already. You know, we talk about that with some of these young guys coming up. Bryce Harper, when he came up, and yes, he hasn't been great since, but his first few years in the league, he was hitting 300 every year. He was driving in runs. He was hitting home runs. You know, he kind of has that ilk of a Bryce Harper in my mind in terms of body language, in terms of and anything else but body language. I like Nolan Gorman. I think he'll be up here sooner than you think.
I think he's got all kinds of talent, and I think he's going to be a star. I just don't want to rush him. You know, and to compare him to Bryce Harper, that's putting a whole lot of pressure on the kid because Bryce Harper is one of the best players in the major leagues. You say he hasn't been very good. He was one of the best hitters in the National League in 60 games last year. And even in the years that he struggled, you know, that first year in Philadelphia, everybody's like, oh, he struggled. What did he hit? 37 home runs and drive home over 100 runs. And everybody's like, oh, Bryce Harper had a bad year. I mean, everybody expects so much from him that when he has a better year than 90% of players, people go, oh, Bryce Harper had a down year.
Yeah, but I compare him to Bryce just based off, you know, the look. Just based off, you know, like to look at the plate. He looks like he's been in the league for years. And that's the way Bryce Harper looked when he came up. So that's why he has that confidence about him. That's why I compared the two.
Here's what I'm going to say, and I say this all the time. And it's not just me. You'll hear Danny McLaughlin say it all the time. Don't get fooled by what you see in September and what you see in spring training. Don't judge everything on those two things because it's not enough time. And I mean, to be honest with you, yeah, Nolan Gorman got a huge hit tonight. But did he do that off of a major league ready pitcher? No, he did it off of a kid that's probably not going to be on the Marlins roster this year. That'll be in Double-A with him. So you got to look at it that way too. A lot of these hits that he's getting in spring training aren't against superstar pitchers that he would see every day in the majors. They're guys that are going to be in Double-A and Single-A and Triple-A in the minors. So you just don't be too excited about what you see in spring training. Again, not taking anything away from Nolan Gorman. I just don't think he's quite there yet.
Yadier Molina is getting a lot of playing time in spring training. And granted, I mean, you got to get ready for the season. It's going to be a longer season this year, obviously. But do you think Yadier Molina is kind of hogging that playing time from a guy like Andrew Knizner? Because if you think about it, Scott, if he does get traded, you're going to need to see him starting games to see what he can do with 2-3 at-bats. Granted, it is spring training. I get it. But Yadi's like 38, 39 years old. At some point, you're going to need to not tone that down a little bit. This is spring training, not the regular season. Go ahead on that.
Knizner's getting playing time. He is,
but he's not getting starts.
He's not going to get very many starts during the regular season either. He's going to start maybe 30 or 40 games maybe. And to go to your other point, he's not getting traded this year because he's your backup catcher. He may get traded in a year or so, but he's not getting traded this year.
No. But you want that full year of exposure so teams can really take a look at him and see what he really has. That's why, give the kid a little bit more starts in spring, especially spring training when you want to rest Yadi. But Yadi has too much pride in my mind to rest at any time. It's crazy, but do you think maybe someone needs to go up to the Yadi and say, hey, you need to take a couple of days off, let the younger guy out there to start. Maybe we'll use you to pinch hit, just that kind of thing.
Yeah, he's been playing like 4 or 5 innings for the most part. He's not playing every inning of every game.
He has a 9-inning game under his belt.
He has one, yeah, but they've played what? How many? They played 15 spring training games, and he's played one 9-inning game. So it's not like he's playing every inning of every spring training game.
It's not like that. I just want to see more of Andrew Knizner, and I want to see more of this kid Herrera. If he's as highly touted as the Cardinals say he is, I just haven't seen a lot of him. How's he look this spring, Scott? Have you paid attention?
He's played a little bit. Again, he's only, he just turned 20. He's a couple of years. He's a couple of years away from being in the major league, so he's going to go to minor league camp and play in the minors. He's super talented. There's a reason why every scout in baseball is talking about him, and he's highly rated. But he's a couple of years away. He's not ready to be playing a whole lot in the major leagues.
Good assessment there. Now, Daniel Ponce de Leon started tonight, and he looked really good early, kind of shaky as it got toward the middle innings. But Scott, what is your profile of Daniel Ponce de Leon?
It's the same thing that we've talked about. Ponce's, you just don't know what you're going to get from start to start from Ponce because he can be really good, but he can also have an inning where he has to throw 30 pitches to get through an inning. So, I mean, you just don't expect a ton of innings from Ponce when he starts because that's kind of his track record at this point, that he's going to be about a 5-inning pitcher.
Yeah, so a 5-inning pitcher, is that really what you want to see out of a guy in your rotation? I mean, yes, the pitching has changed, but I just think 5 innings is just too – you need more than 5 innings from your starter, at least 6 innings. 5 innings, you're asking your bullpen to do a lot. And this bullpen's touted to be pretty good, but Scott, you don't want to ruin them early, right?
Well, no, you don't want every one of your pitchers to go be a 5-inning pitcher, but there's a lot of pitchers in baseball that are starters that are fourth or fifth starters that's all they are is 5 innings, maybe 6 on a good day. And you got to remember too that baseball's changing with analytics. A lot of the general managers and stuff say that they don't want their pitchers facing a lineup more than 2 times. So a lot of teams are going to that fact where they don't want their starters going more than 5 innings. That was the whole key to the Tampa Bay Rays going to the World Series last year. That was their whole plan last year, and it's how they won the division last year. That's the way they ran their team. Not saying I like it, but a lot of teams are going to that format with the way they run their starting pitching.
The argument I would have against it, though, Scott, can it really win you a championship? I mean, the Rays bullpen, come the World Series, they looked tired. That Rays bullpen was overused, and that can kill a team. So I don't know if that's the best method. I don't know what you think, but I think that's not the way to win a championship. Yes, it may get you far, but at some point they're going to get tired.
Yeah, no, I didn't say I like it, and I don't agree with it. I want to see starters pitch more innings than that, and most starters, the really good starters want to do that too. So hopefully teams don't go to that as much as analytics say that they should. And the Cardinals are in a good spot because Wainwright's going to give you 6 or 7 innings most times out. Flaherty's going to give you 6 or 7 innings most times out. Even Carlos, more often than not, is going to give you 6 innings, maybe 7 innings. So the Cardinals do have the ability to spread that out with their rotation. And, Miles Mikolas also, if he gets back, has been an innings eater through his career, as has KK. So I don't think that's going to be a real problem for the Cardinals.
I hope not. And I'm kind of happy to – I'd be happy to be wrong, Scott, but this rotation, at least early, could be a little bit shaky because you're relying on young guys a lot. I mean, yes, you have Wainwright and you have Flaherty. And Flaherty needs to show out this year, in my mind, to – warrant giving him a contract because he hasn't had a really good full year yet.
Yeah, I've been saying that. I've been saying that for like a year and a half now.
And I agree
with you. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think he's going to. I think he's going to have a really solid year. I think he's going to. I think Carlos is going to. And I'm not worried about John Gant. I think John Gant's going to do a really nice job in that rotation.
I think so. And he can hit. John Gant has a bat on him too, so you're gonna see pitchers hit this year. That'll be another interesting aspect to this Major League Baseball season. Is how do these pitchers, not having to hit last year, how did they transition back into normalcy? Really, I mean, there were some good hitting pitchers though. I mean, I'm not saying the entire league was good, but
it's not going to be pretty. Hitting pitchers overall in baseball isn't good. I mean, a good hitting pitcher might hit close to 200 for a season. I doubt if we see a pitcher in the National League, any pitcher hit 200 this year because, like you said, they haven't hit for a year. They didn't hit it all last year, and they just started this week hitting in spring training. So, I mean, it's been like a year and a half since they've hit it all. It's going to be ugly, and you're going to have people – you're going to have people saying, see, we should have had the DH this year. We don't want to watch this. And so, yeah, it's not going to be the best thing in the world. But if you like strategy, which, we've talked about we do, then, we like National League Baseball. But enjoy it this year if you're a fan of pitchers hitting because this will be the last time you see it.
Scott, do you think so? You really think so at this point?
Everybody says it, Joe. When they do the collective bargaining, everybody wants the DH. The Players Association wants it. The owners want it. It's going to happen. This will be the last year that pitchers hit in the National League. Plus, for one thing, they want more offense in baseball. As much as we talk about strategy, I mean, pitchers hitting is not, it's not good. Half of the pitchers in the National League can't even bunt anymore. We've seen that over the last couple of years. They're bad at it. They don't practice it. And so most of them are just an automatic strikeout. So as much as I like the strategy of National League Baseball, the game wants to score more runs. They want more offense. They want more action. And having pitchers hit doesn't bring any of that.
Having pitchers hit, I agree, doesn't bring that, but it does bring me rare, good, great moments. I can think of one off the top of my head, and that's Bartolo Colon hitting his first career home run in San Diego. That was probably one of my favorite moments, at least since I've been alive in baseball history. And that's saying a lot because there have been some good moments.
Well, and as fun as that was, I mean, there's a reason that everybody remembers that. It's because Bartolo was an absolutely awful hitter. He was like an 0-40 hitter for his career, So as much fun as it was to watch 44-year-old beer gut Bartolo Colon hit a home run and run around the bases, for the good of the game, it wasn't really great.
Oh, shoot. Scott, I shared a video with you that came out from our friends at 101 ESPN, and I wanted your thoughts on it. So basically, if Alex Reyes isn't a starter by next season, is his career a failure in a sense?
No.
If you watch the whole video, Scott, you tell me what you got out of that and what you think about it.
It was Brandon Kiley and some of those guys discussing would the Cardinals leave Alex Reyes in their bullpen and make him a closer and not stretch him out like we've talked about early in spring, so that he doesn't get enough innings that he's not able to move into the starting rotation next year. As much as I want to see Alex Reyes be a starter, and I think he will be, if Alex Reyes ends up never starting another game or not very many, but he's a closer or he's your eighth inning setup guy and, he's absolutely lights out dominant, then no, his career's not a failure, especially if he helps you go to the playoffs and win playoff games. I mean, how many teams' best pitchers have been closers or their eighth inning setup guys? I mean, think about the Cleveland Indians. Think about the Cleveland Indians a few years ago and Andrew Miller. If Alex Reyes is something like that and is that dynamic in that role, then there's no way you can say his career's a failure.
No, the way that the Cardinals wanted him to become a starter, but and no fault of his own, he's been stuck in the bullpen. Basically because injuries and not being able to get his pitch count up, his innings up. Well, they're going to try to get 100 innings out of him, which you would think there'd be a few starts in there. And judging by the way this rotation is going to be early, that first start for him may come sooner rather than later, don't you think?
No, I don't. I don't think they're going to rush that. I don't think there's any chance of that happening. I think you see Johan Oviedo get a start before Alex Reyes does. They're going to be super careful with him. They want him to be in the bullpen. He's going to get a lot of innings. And, yeah, I think he'll probably get a spot start or two, but I don't think it'll happen before July at the earliest.
How many other guys do you think we see up here? Like a guy like Zach Thompson, you think we see him this year?
No, because he's not on the 40-man roster. Him and Libator, neither one are on the 40-man roster. Okay. Could we see him? We may see him towards the end of the season, in September. That's possible, but we're not going to see him right away. They have enough guys that they're going to give chances to if they need somebody to spot start. I mean, like we're seeing right now, Ponce and Gant are going to be the guys that get those chances first and more often than not. One of those two guys will fill in. Then you've got a guy like Genesis Cabrera that has started games in the major leagues. You can throw him in the rotation if you need to. You have Jake Woodford, who's going to be at the satellite camp. He can do it. And then, like we said, we have Johan Oviedo, who's already on the 40-man roster and started games last year. He's going to do it. So all of those guys, I would imagine, would get starts before Alex Reyes does, just because the Cardinals want to be super careful. I think he will get. I don't think he's going to get to 100 innings, just because, like we said, it's going to be hard to do in the bullpen. If he gets somewhere between 75 and 80 innings and a couple of spot starts, that'll be enough innings that you can stretch him out over the winter, and he should be ready to go for spring training next year to be a starter next year in that rotation.
Yeah. What do you think of a guy in Zach Thompson getting the number 57? That number has not been issued since Darryl Kyle died. Do you think that number should be worn at all in the Cardinal organization? I don't care if it is spring training. I think that number should be retired. I mean, yes, there were plaques. There was like a little patch out there in the bullpen of DK57, but that number just needs to retire because I'm sorry, if a pitcher of that caliber dies in the organization, you should not ever issue that number out again.
See, I disagree. DK's number, that 57 plaque is in the bullpen. It will always be in the bullpen as a remembrance to Darryl Kyle, and he deserves that. But it's been almost 20 years. It'll be 19 years this year. And I don't know if you watched the Cardinal game, but they actually did a little video during the game tonight talking to Zach Thompson and talking about him understanding the relevance of him wearing that number and understanding and respecting the legacy of Darryl Kyle and how he wants to continue to honor Darryl Kyle every time he puts that jersey on. And so I think, the Cardinals don't retire numbers unless you're in the Hall of Fame. That's just a team policy. It's been 19 years, and like I said, the DK57 in the bullpen will always be there. And so I think it's time. It's a little weird seeing it, but I think it's weird. And the Cardinals said they felt like Zach Thompson was a guy who would respect that number, understand the history of it, and felt like he could deal with that. And they also reached out to the Kyle family and got their blessing for somebody to wear that uniform. So I think it's okay, and I think nobody's going to forget Darryl Kyle in Cardinal Nation.
So, Scott, you are getting ready to embark on this 2021 season as an usher at Busch Stadium. What are some of the things that the ushers have to pay attention to, especially during COVID? Are they going to be as strict as, let's say, ushers at Blues games? Because I've heard that's very strict there.
Yeah, it's going to be super strict, man. We're just now starting our training and we're starting to figure out everything that we're going to do. But yeah, they're going to be enforcing social distancing. They're going to be making sure that people keep their masks on. As much as everybody wants to think this pandemic's over, it's not. So
no,
there's going to be strict policies that are going to be enforced very heavily at Busch Stadium, and that's the way it's going to be. And like I said, we're just now starting to get into all of that. So to go into exact detail as to what all the procedures and policies are going to be, I can't do that right now. I will be able to in the next couple of weeks, but we're just going over stuff and figuring stuff out ourselves right now.
As an usher at Busch Stadium, do you guys get your own mask, or do you guys get like your own Cardinals mask? Would they provide those?
Oh, I'm sure they'll do something. I'm sure they will.
I like the ones that Mike Schilt was wearing last year. He had his number on it, and it was an all red and I think blue mask. I love those. I don't know. If you're going to wear a mask, be creative with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The players all had the Gators last year, so we'll see. I don't know what we're getting or how that's all going to work. But yeah, everything with the Cardinals is uniformed, that all the employees wear. So they'll have something set up for us.
So Scott, do you already had your orientation? It's not normal per se, Scott, but it's nice to be back at the ballpark, right?
It will be. Yeah. Looking forward to it. We're about 3 weeks from today, actually, will be opening day at Busch Stadium because they start 2 weeks from today in Cincinnati. So 3 weeks from today, we will be back at Busch Stadium and, the festivities and the Hall of Famers and all that fun stuff. So looking forward to it.
Have you heard anything about opening day and how that's going to work?
That it's going to be as close to normal as possible. That's all we know right now. They're still finalizing stuff. And while we're talking about opening day and going back to the season, we can't talk about that without thinking about some of the stuff the Cardinals put out today is the legend himself, Mr. Mike Shannon, going into his 50th and final season in the Cardinal broadcast booth. And so there's going to be lots and lots of tributes for the Moon Man at Busch Stadium this year. I know a lot of former players are putting together video tributes to Mike that are going to air on the video boards at the ballpark between innings. They're going to have a couple of ceremonies for him as the season goes on. And there's going to be a bunch of Mike Shannon giveaways. And They've created a website, Cardinals Mike Shannon 50, that you can go to and see some of his greatest calls and pictures and memories of Mike over the years. And there's not too many people that could possibly be a better ambassador for the city of St. Louis or the St. Louis Cardinals or love that organization or the city more than Mike Shannon. So it's going to be a fun year and kind of a sad year to think that Mike won't be there anymore. And I know I've told you this story before, but as a 10-year-old kid at Whitey Herzog's golf tournament, getting to spend the day with Mike, being his caddy, riding around on a golf cart with Mike Shannon, Red Shandy's, Norm Stewart, hearing stories, spending the day with him then was unbelievable. And I'm hoping to get a chance to have a few minutes to talk to Mike at some point before the year is over and reminisce about that, because we've talked about it a couple of times over the years, but I'm hoping to get a chance to have a conversation with him again before this season's over.
Maybe have him on this show before the season's over, because that would be a fun conversation to have.
See what we can do. We will see what we can do.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Let's see if that can get done. What are your memories of Mike besides the story you told about the golf tournament? Like your favorite calls? What sums up Mike Shannon to you?
Mike Shannon for our generation, people over the last 50 years, was Harry Carey. And there's so much of Harry Carey and Mike Shannon, because Harry's who Mike grew up listening to and was around as a player. Just his excitement about the game, his love of the game, the stories, the Budweiser, all of those things that we've gotten to experience from Mike over the years, kind of come from his time around Harry, growing up as a kid in St. Louis, listening to him, and then being around Harry when he was a player for the Cardinals in the 60s. But, my best memories of Mike are, being a kid in the summertime with my grandparents, having the radio on, listening to Mike and Jack call Cardinal baseball. I mean, like so many people in St. Louis, that is our childhood, is the voice of Jack Buck and Mike Shannon calling Cardinal baseball on KMOX.
Yeah, I remember a lot of calls. One of them is the steal of home by Brummer to win a game. Or Glenn Brummer. One of them has to be the 3 home run game I think Albert Pujols had on Easter one year. I think it was against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I remember being at that game, and I remember driving home. We had to leave early to go to an Easter event, and driving home listening to the call, swing it home. If it's fair, it is fair. Sorry, you know what I mean? Just calls like that. Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, that was one of the very first games in Busch Stadium 3, too. The stadium wasn't completely done yet, if you remember, for that Easter game. The seats in the upper deck and left field, you couldn't sit up there yet. So I think that was like the 6th or 7th game ever in that ballpark when he did that.
It was an awesome game, and Lester chimes in. Mike Shannon. Mike had a cannon of an arm in right field. A lot of things that are kind of looked over is Mike Shannon as a player. He was a very good player, very good athlete, too.
He was. If Mike hadn't gotten sick, his career, of course, got cut really short because he got sick. And a lot of people don't realize this. Mike was an unbelievable quarterback and was recruited to Mizzou. And I've had lots of people tell the stories. I've heard it from all kinds of people that if Mike would have stayed at Mizzou, he more than likely would have won a Heisman and probably would have been a very, very good NFL quarterback.
Man, I'm glad he chose baseball, though, because it was a great career on the field and a great career in the broadcast booth. It'll be interesting to see what the Cardinals do in terms of replacing a guy like Mike Shannon. Will it just be Claiborne and Rooney in the booth now, or is there someone being groomed? What do you think they're going to do there?
Probably, my guess would be Ricky Horton. Probably Ricky Horton and Claiborne and Rooney. Although you got to remember too, John Rooney's not young either. John Rooney's been around a long time. He spent a lot of time with the White Sox. There have been rumors and speculation that when Mike left, Joe comes back. That would be the perfect ending for Joe Buck to come back and finish his career in the booth. taking over for Mike, who meant so much to him, and his dad's legacy and Joe's beginning. It would just kind of be full circle for Joe to come back and go back to Camo X.
Yeah, it would be. Also, Mike wasn't always a great broadcaster. You learn from the best in Jack Buck, and it's so easy when you learn from a guy like Jack Buck too.
Yeah, again, like I said earlier, he spent so much time with Jack, and Jack was a huge mentor. And then growing up listening to Harry and being around Harry, and Mike wasn't the greatest broadcaster sometimes. He would say stuff, but the thing about Mike was that if he did say something that was wrong or he screwed up, he was able to laugh at himself and tell a story and move on. And Mike Claiborne talked about that. Mike Shannon's kind of one of the last of the great storytellers as a broadcaster, because that's part of what makes Mike so great is he's got so many stories. And, he got a lot of that from Jack and Harry as well. And it's not going to be the same without him, that's for sure.
I remember that Mike Shannon story that Claiborne told. I remember cracking up laughing at it. If you guys haven't seen that interview yet, go back and look at the Mike Claiborne interview we did a couple weeks back. And basically the story he told was Mike Shannon left a car running for 5 hours. 8 hours. Left the car running for 8 hours. Went back and looked in the car, and the gas tank was still on full. This gas tank was still on full. That's the funniest thing I think I've ever heard.
Yeah. That was a good story.
Yeah, so there are going to be a lot of tributes. I wonder what the Cardinals, since there are going to be limited capacity, if they will do something like production-wise for TV just to get, make sure all fans get to appreciate them, not just the fans that have the privilege to get to the ballpark this season. And who knows, maybe by July they can have a ceremony with all fans in attendance. I mean, maybe they can have 100% capacity by July and all fans can appreciate one of those ceremonies.
Yeah, I mean that's the hope. And again, like I said, they've created the website where you can go and see stuff and leave messages and watch videos, and there'll be commercials. There's going to be a lot of stuff. They're still working on stuff. We haven't heard all of the details of everything, but there'll be plenty of opportunities for everybody to thank Mike and appreciate Mike, and it'll be a fun year for sure.
I remember getting a Mike Shannon, before we get out of here, I remember getting a Mike Shannon bobblehead. I think it was an announcer bobblehead where it had a voice piece to it, and the call on there was the home run from Game 6 of the World Series. That was probably the Cardinals do such a great job with their giveaways. Scott, are you amazed at every giveaway they come up with and how well done they are?
They do a nice job. That is absolutely for sure. And if you haven't heard already, there's going to be giveaways pretty much every day, every game this year. They've already announced that all the giveaways for all the home games in April, and there's going to be pretty much giveaways for every home game this year. So that'll be exciting for fans. Real quick, giving some NCAA tournament updates. Michigan State's ahead of UCLA 35-23 with about 4 minutes left in the first quarter. And I'm waiting to see an updated score on the other game, as it should be almost over. But, right now Michigan State up on UCLA by 12 with about 4 minutes left in the first half.
You think Michigan State ends up winning this game, right?
It looks good for them right now. UCLA is tough, but if I had to guess, and as Wags and I have said a few times on this show, never ever count out Tom Izzo team, especially in the tournament. So if I had to guess, I would say Michigan State probably wins.
Yeah, I would think Michigan State would win this game, especially being up like that. But then again, we've seen runs from teams that quickly that deficit goes away. So good show tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. For Scott Tobin, I'm Joe Hamilton. Be sure to be kind to one another and do the right things so we can be back at Busch Stadium soon. Have a good one, guys.